should be sharing with you shortly by email a link to a lot of the video that was made available by Tom over the last week, so to help you with your coverage. Just to note that we have a senior personnel appointment today, which is not a surprise, as it's been hinted, but it is now official. Today, the Secretary General, following consultations with the Executive Board of the UN Development Program, wrote to the President of the General Assembly requesting the General Assembly to confirm Alexander De Croo of Belgium as the new administrator of UNDP for a term of 4 years. The General Assembly confirmed the nomination today. Mr. De Croo succeeds Achim Steiner of Germany, to whom the Secretary General is grateful for his leadership and commitment to the organization. He also wishes to express his appreciation to Hao Liang-shu, Associate Administrator of UNDP, who's been handling the interim and will continue to do so until Mr. De Croo's arrival. Just as background, Mr. De Croo has dedicated much of his career to public service, advancing global solidarity, combining political leadership, development cooperation, innovation. As former Prime Minister of Belgium from 2020 to 2025, he worked closely with multilateral institutions to steer structural changes for people in some of the world's most vulnerable regions, having consistently supported UNDP as a key partner, and we welcome Mr. De Croo to the UN family. As far as the Secretary General, he just arrived in Belém in Brazil a few hours ago, where, as you all know, COP30 is currently underway. As I told you last week, during the first few days, he will be meeting with negotiating parties, including various regional groups and ministers. He will also engage with civil society representatives and indigenous peoples and youth, and we will update you on his program as it goes along. Turning to the situation in Gaza, our colleagues with the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs warn that the humanitarian situation remains very difficult, with many people struggling to access the basics they need to survive. Following heavy rains on Friday, humanitarian teams carried out a rapid assessment of impacted areas over the weekend and provided some initial aid. More than 13,000 families are estimated to have been impacted by the flooding. According to our partners working on shelter over the weekend, they helped distribute at least 9,000 tents, 83,000 tarpaulins, and 59,000 blankets, with thousands more planned in the coming days. While we and our partners have moved swiftly to respond to rain-affected areas, our efforts remain constrained by inadequate volume of shelter and other necessary supplies allowed to enter through the UN coordinated mechanism. With temperatures dropping and winter fast approaching, we must be allowed to expand the shelter response to meet the vast scale of needs across the Gaza Strip. We continue to call for unrestricted, for rapid and sustained access, the opening of additional crossings, facilitation of entry of tents that are currently restricted, as well as critical equipment to maintain storm drains and repair sanitation networks, permission for NGOs to bring in supplies, and the safe movement of humanitarian convoys. Since October 10th, at least 9 attempts by the United Nations and our partners to bring in tents have been rejected. Our partners working on food security report that with the volume of food parcels entering Gaza having increased in recent days, they plan to resume the distribution of 2 food parcels and 1 bag of flour across the Strip. Earlier this last week, distribution in the north had to be limited to high-energy biscuits and 1 bag of flour because partners working in to bring supplies were facing impediments, including the deprioritization of humanitarian cargo at crossings, customs clearance delays, and lack of access to northern crossings. Meanwhile, our colleagues working on efforts to remove rubble and debris from roads and communities tell us they've cleared 100,000 tons of debris since the ceasefire came into effect. However, nearly 58 million tons of debris and rubble remain spread across the Gaza Strip, and only half of that amount is currently accessible. We and our partners continue to collect supplies daily from crossings. Over the weekend, we and those who are working with us started collecting supplies that had been offloaded at the Zikim crossing, and we're bringing them into Gaza. This is after 2 months when that crossing had been closed. Our teams collect over 2,700 pallets of essential supplies. That's about 2,600 metric tons. Overall, between Thursday and Sunday, we and our partners collected over 5,400 metric tons of assistance from the crossings. That's what the UN 2720 mechanism dashboard is telling us. Supplies included food tents, tarpaulins, blankets, mattresses, and animal fodder. Moving north to the latest developments in southern Lebanon, I can tell you that the Secretary General is indeed deeply concerned by the increased frequency of incidents impacting the safety and security of our peacekeepers in Lebanon. Yesterday, an Israeli tank near one of the IDF positions located north of the Blue Line opened fire towards northeast of Sadra in Sector East. Rounds of fire hit approximately 5 meters from our peacekeepers who were in the vicinity. UNIFIL requested the IDF to stop the firing immediately through our liaison channels. Thankfully, no UNIFIL personnel were injured. The Secretary General reminds all parties of their obligations to ensure the protection of UN personnel and property. Peacekeepers must never be targeted by attacks. And in a separate incident also yesterday, a drone fell inside a UN position southeast of Marwahin in Sector West. A grenade was discovered beneath the drone and detonated by our explosive ordnance disposal team. Our peacekeeping colleagues are trying to determine the origin of the drone. Also yesterday, a UNIFIL radar detected 2 separate shelling events where a total of 4 120 millimeter short mortar shells impacted northwest of Sadra and Sector East. All shells were fired from south to the north of the Blue Line. Meanwhile, UNIFIL peacekeepers continue to discover unauthorized weapons caches as well as unexploded ordnance in their area of operation. Yesterday, peacekeepers found a rocket-propelled grenade and ammunition in the vicinity of a 50-meter-long tunnel northwest of Frun in Sector East. UNIFIL marked the area, and as they do, they informed the Lebanese armed forces about their find for disposal. Back here, the Security Council is holding an open debate today on conflict-related food insecurity, a critical issue. Just in the past year, the Famine Review Committee has confirmed famine on 3 separate occasions, twice in Sudan and once in Gaza. This marks the first time that conflict-driven famine has been confirmed more than once in a single year. Briefing the Council, our Deputy Secretary General, Mina Mohammed, emphasized that war and hunger are intertwined, with starvation increasingly used as a weapon. She noted that while global military spending reached $21.9 trillion over the past decades, ending hunger by 2030 would cost $93 billion. For her part, Joyce Masuya, our Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, urged Council members to use their leverage to address hunger in conflict, calling for stronger policies and practices to protect civilians and facilitating humanitarian action. Maximo Torero, the chief economist of the Food and Agriculture Organization, told the Council that food insecurity is no longer just a humanitarian challenge, but a matter of global peace and security, waiting for famine to occur before acting and before it is too late. Turning to Ukraine, our OCHA colleagues report that hostilities over the weekend caused dozens of civilian casualties and further disrupted critical services amid cold weather. According to authorities, widespread attacks between Saturday and this morning killed at least a dozen civilians and injured more than 60, including 5 children. In the town of Balaklia in the Kharkiv region, a missile strike killed 3 civilians and injured 15 more, among them 5 girls. Additional casualties were reported in Chernihiv, Dnipro, Donetsk, Kharkiv, Kherson, Sumy, and Zaporizhzhia. Humanitarian organizations responded immediately after a deadly attack in Balaklia, where they delivered bottled water, snacks, hygiene items, blankets, and construction material, and also offered mental health support. Authorities and our partners report that residential buildings and critical infrastructure were damaged along the front line. In the region of Odessa, a drone attack left more than 30,000 households without electricity, while strike in the Chernihiv region disrupted power in several communities. Scheduled power outages continued across much of Ukraine following recent attacks. Power disruptions remain particularly severe near the front lines, where our partners report that nearly 70% of locations they've assessed or face frequent or prolonged outages, while some have no electricity at all. These outages continue to affect the water supply, heating, and telecommunications, with direct consequences, as one can imagine, on civilians and our humanitarian operations. Meanwhile, OCHA says that evacuations from frontline areas continued over the weekend. And a quick update from our peacekeepers in Abyei. The UN Interim Security Force for Abyei, UNISFA, reports it's completed repairs on maintenance on the Banton Bridge over the River Kir. This bridge is a vital link between Abyei's central and southern villages and an important route for trade with South Sudan. The bridge had been unsafe for months, restricting civilian movement, access, and the patrols of our peacekeepers. Separately, UN peacekeepers also cleared a route from the northern checkpoint to Amiet Market by removing stranded vehicles and repairing rain-damaged road sections. You will have seen the Security Council on Friday extended the mandate of the peacekeeping force for another year. And while Hurricane Melissa has moved on, we're starting to uncover even more lasting consequences. Our colleagues at UNICEF tell us that 3 weeks after the storm hit the Caribbean, nearly 477,000 children are experiencing significant disruptions in their schoolings. That's in Cuba, Haiti, and Jamaica. With many schools damaged or closed, children have been forced to miss classes or study temporary spaces that may not be equipped for proper learning. In response, UNICEF, working with local governments and partners, are delivering supplies and are trying to rehabilitate damaged schools. In Cuba, UNICEF has pre-positioned supplies to reach 21,000 students, including school kits. They're also supporting efforts for rehabilitation there. And in Haiti, UNICEF provided 2,800 school kits in South and NIPS departments, and additional actions are planned in the coming weeks. And in Jamaica, the agency has provided teaching and learning material along with up to 100 temporary learning spaces to support 10,000 children. Our colleagues call on donors to protect education by mobilizing money to address the most urgent of the children's needs. More details online. Just to flag that at 1:15 this afternoon, the Deputy Secretary General will be one of the speakers at the dedication of the Flowers of Srebrenica Memorial just outside the building in the garden overlooking the East River. You're all invited to attend. Bosnia and Herzegovina donated the Flower of Srebrenica Memorial to the Secretariat earlier this year as part of the Srebrenica Genocide and UN Outreach Program. The permanent memorial forms an integral part of the Srebrenica Genocide and UN Outreach Program, which engages visitors in